Shivers, The Enchanted Attic by M.D. Spencer, Chapter 17. Nicole stuck the end of the crowbar through the loop of the padlock. Casey held the flashlight. Nicole braced herself against the trunk with one foot, took a deep breath, and yanked back on the crowbar. The lock popped open. Nicole and Casey knelt down in front of the trunk. "Maybe it's treasure," Casey whispered. Nicole didn't know what to think. Slowly, she lifted the lid. It rocked back on its hinges. Nicole didn't know what she had expected, but it wasn't this. The trunk was filled with dolls, dozens of them. Nicole and Casey gasped. Those dolls were beautiful. There was a bride, and a farmer, and one who looked like a school teacher, and another dressed as a sailor. Their clothes were perfect miniatures of real clothes down to the last detail. The stitches were tiny. The shoes had miniature laces. Nicole picked up the bride and examined her, while Casey held the flashlight. Nicole was fascinated. The doll looked so lifelike, down to her fingernails and her eyelashes. She even had fine lines under her eyes, and a mark on her right cheek that looked like a small scar. "Cool," Casey said. The girls were so entranced by the dolls that they played with them for an hour, forgetting the danger they had felt before. Sometimes Nicole felt she was a little old to play with dolls. She never discussed dolls at school anymore. But she liked plays. She had acted in several of them. And she loved to stage plays with her dolls, as if she were a movie director. Plus, it was something she still liked to do with Casey, and that made it fun, too. Casey put the flashlight on the floor, shining it toward the trunk. It lit up an area of the floor and the trunk in a way that made it look like a stage. The bride was marrying the sailor. The school teacher was the bride's mother. The farmer was her father. For other guests, they rummaged through the trunk and brought out, among other dolls, a soldier carrying a musket in the crook of his arm, and some sort of scholar wearing the cap and gown of a college graduation. Eventually, they heard their mother calling them, and leaving the wedding party at the altar, they scrambled down the narrow staircase as quickly as they could, while keeping reasonably quiet. "I'm getting over my fears," Nicole thought. "At least this time, I recognized my mother's voice and didn't get freaked out." But her fears returned soon enough. That evening, as Nicole snuggled into bed, smiling at the memory of playing with the new dolls, the cello music began again. Low, mournful, unspeakably sad, and louder than ever, much louder. It did not sound muffled, as it had on previous nights. Then the drum started banging out its own separate beat. Brat-a-tat-tat, brat-a-tat-tat, brat, brat, brat-a-tat-tat. Nicole did not want to hear. She had been inside the attic now, and she knew there was nothing up there that could be playing any music. She shoved her head under the pillow, but the pillow did not block out the noise. A flute joined in, playing yet another different melody. and there was a scuffling over Nicole's head from where the attic must be. Suddenly, Nicole heard another noise in the hall, right outside her room. It was a slow, shuffling sound, as if something were dragging its feet along the hallway. Nicole whipped the pillow off her head and sat up to listen. The cello music grew louder. The drumming grew sharper. The scuffling in the ceiling grew more distinct, and the shuffling sound in the hallway grew nearer and nearer and nearer. Nicole's eyes were wide with fear. She couldn't breathe. She stared in horror at the door to her room. As she watched, the doorknob slowly started to turn. She opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The door started to open. And in walked Casey, her favorite yellow blanket draped over her arm, her slippers shuffling along the floor. Nicole let out a long breath. She could breathe again. Then she looked at Casey's face. It was white with fear. "I heard music," Casey said, "from the attic." Nicole didn't know whether to be relieved or frightened. On the one hand, at least she knew she wasn't crazy. She wasn't the only one hearing the music. On the other hand, there really was music, and it was coming from the attic, where there was absolutely nothing that was capable of making music. At least, nothing she could see.